Would you welcome, please, James Schnepf.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Schnepf, and I photograph people. Throughout my career, my forte has always been photographing people in their environment, and I've got to say without hesitation, I've not found a more fascinating and passionate community of people and a better stage to photograph on than the cast of characters and the architecture that make up my new book, Palm Springs Modern Living, which just recently came out through Gibb Smith. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming out this afternoon to hear about the making of my Palm Springs project, of which this book is a major part of. Over the course of the next hour, some of the things we'll talk about will be who am I and where the heck did I come from. I'll briefly. So, 2010, I came face to face with this place in Palm Desert. I had been out here in 2007 and 2010. Had a realtor show me some places. He took me to Sandpiper, fell in love with it, and that's where the story of the Palm Springs project really starts to take root. My wife and I bought this in 2010, and we just started thinking we're going to come here, we're going to hang out, we're going to sit by the pool, you know, and just enjoy. I began to photograph this area, but I really thought, you know what, there's something missing. Where are the people? Because without people, there's no architecture, right? So, being a people photographer, I wanted to go after that angle. I was curious as hell as to who was living in all of these different homes I started to see. So at Sandpiper, I started photographing to understand the place. That's what I do oftentimes, is photograph people and places, and it really helps me understand who they are. These great facades, I wanted to get behind. Everybody said that the living really happens behind the place, you know, and that's where the views are, that's where the pool is. So as we met them, I started to get so immersed into everything preservation and modernism. They educated me quickly, and without them from the get-go and throughout the project, it may never have taken off. So basically, at this point, I wanted to, real quickly, this is Jim and Karen's Hollywood house at Sandpiper. Isn't that gorgeous? So at this point, I wanted to get to work and meet these people that lived behind these amazing, mysterious facades that were so new to me. And Jim and Karen fed me a list of names that they thought would be great people to start out with. And from there, really, the list just kept growing and growing. I thought at some point it might shorten. It just kept growing. So let's meet some of the people right now, and I'll try to give you some background. We're a little rushed. The Gans, Joan and Gary Gans. Musicians from Chicago, and they play so often now at the Purple Room. I'm sure many of you know them, and they're just a blast. And they come out here and they live life to the fullest. So it was really enjoying to work with them. And the great old car at the time. Courtney and Joy from Modern Way. Probably the first couple that with a vintage furniture store in Palm Springs. So that was really cool to hang out with them. Golf was such a big part of the desert experience, I knew I had to include it somehow. One of my contacts I'd made from my growing network of friends, Jim out at Marrakesh Country Club in Palm Desert, he suggested I come out on a Thursday just to hang out and look around a little bit. When I did, he also happened to mention to me that on Thursdays at 11, there's a putting contest from 11 to 12, and I should check it out because all the ladies come out and they're pink and they have little aprons on with their scorecard and their pencil and their golf ball. So I did, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So I got up on top. This could be the quote of the book, Mr. Ember. This could be it. I absolutely love this quote. Who wouldn't want to meet this gentleman? Robert's been doing Palm Springs Modern tours for years, and just the best guy, and I love this line. So here's Robert at City Hall. I collaborated with the subjects on these shoots. You know, I'd always try to include them as far as where would you like to be photographed. Jean's been out here since the 50s, and I met Jean, I'll do this briefly, I met Jean at an art gallery about 3 years ago. She was curating a show of Albert Frey photography. And I love Albert Frey's work, and when I saw him connected with photography, which I had no idea of at the time, I thought I've got to go to the show. Well, I went there, and there was this cute little lady sitting at a desk with some posters that she was signing. And I saw her and I thought, man, I've got to meet this lady. So I did, and on a later trip we connected. And I found out more about her. She's a very spiritual person. She's taught yoga here since the 50s. Too many stories to even start with. But anyway, I knew I wanted to photograph her in something related to yoga. So not far from her home, I found this mountainside location, and I picked her up at 4:30 in the morning. Imagine this, to be there before the sun came out. Imagine me pulling up my car to the front gate of the condo development. It's dark out, it's black. I've got my headlights on, and this little lady comes out in this outfit into my headlights, and I thought, this is absolutely precious. I couldn't have planned this better. So that's the first photograph we made. It was 1963 Avantes done by Raymond Loewy. These are iconic cars from Palm Springs, really, because they were designed here, and these were photographed at the Loewy house, which was done by Albert Frey. I see this as a portrait of two cars, really, or two people. Do you see that the eyes are like, the headlights are like eyes? Grill work is like a little smile down there. So it's my portrait of two Avantes. Serendipity struck here. We finished the shoot up, and Mr. Ember here was coming around the bend. He's up top in the hat in the double-decker tour bus. And when I saw that, I had my camera ready, because then Mr. Ember called Bill's attention. Everybody started waving. Bill turned around to wave, and I just got low and made this photograph. And when Bill saw the layouts for my book and saw his foreword that he wrote and saw that this photograph was used, this is what he emailed me and said. Don Wexler. And again, it was such a pleasure meeting another one of the iconic architects. I met Mr. Wexler through his son, Gary, and I'll mention right now, too, that Gary's a big part of this book. Gary's a really great graphic designer in Palm Springs, and he did the book. Gary brought his dad down over to the Merrill Lynch building. Gary thought it'd be a great place to photograph, because he's not associated with that building a lot. So, and I know he is more and more now, but at this point, 2 years ago, he wasn't. So we made a photograph there here. We're done with the shoot, and I noticed Don walked over to look in the windows to see what the inside of the house was looking like. And at that moment, Gary happened to be walking around the side of the pool. So we've titled this image, Looking for Gary. Hugh Captor. Hugh Captor I talked to on the phone initially for about an hour, and he gave me his whole life story. And so giving with his time, and we arranged a time when I was coming back to the desert to go around and look at his work. And he spent 4 hours with me in his vehicle, driving me all around the city to see everything that he'd done. And I thought, man, this is really special. So we looked at the Palm Springs Golf Course Clubhouse. That's what this is right here. And that's where we, after scouting one day and coming back to shoot the next day, this is where we started our photo shoot. Now on that scout day, we were driving around the last place on the tour. He said, you know, let's stop by my family home. I haven't been there in 20 years, but I kind of want to see it. And he had been back to his family home from 1957. Since 1990, we knocked on the door. The homeowners opened it up. The guy's eyes bugged right out of his head. Said, "You Captor." So he invited us in, and when we got in, he said, "You know, I want to show you something. Back in the early '60s, I built these benches up on top of the garage, and it was a place for me to get away." He was going through some stressful things back then, and he said he would go up on the roof and he would just have a glass of wine, look off at the mountains, and so that's what we did that day. We went up the ladder and made that photograph and made this photograph. Now this isn't about architecture. This is a moment with a person that was really special, and our hearts go out to Hugh right now with the passing of his dear wife, Helen. Josh Agel, also known as Shag. You all know his work, I'm sure. I didn't know much about Shag. I'd seen him around at some events, but I started to get a picture in my mind what I thought I wanted to do with him. So I started asking him some questions to find out about him. Do you have a family? What's, you know, who are your friends? Blah blah blah. So he does have a family. He's got a wife and 2 kids. His good friends Jay and Michelle Naylor are in the photograph. So what I wanted to do is kind of play off of one of his scenes that he creates, but I wanted to use him and his family as the characters. So that's the inspiration for this approach to this portrait of Josh. Philip K. Smith. Yes. Bravo. a nice podium too, by the way. So at the time, Philip's studio was out in Indio, and we just had some phone conversations back and forth. I really didn't have the opportunity to go out and see his space and really scout it like I did most of the photographs in the book. So I raced out to Indio on what had to be the windiest day of the year. I'd never experienced. Wondering if there's anything we can do with that wind to make a portrait. So we went outside. This is the Idris house up in Little Tuscany, owned by J.R. Roberts. Just for the record, there were probably about 15 images that were submitted between Gary and I to the publisher for cover possibilities. This was just one of 57 shoots, basically, that I ended up doing. And it was a sunrise shoot, and I kept finding that shooting either at sunrise or pre-sunrise was working out best for the photographs that I wanted to make. And this is before the sun comes up. The sun is just about to come up behind him in the east, so it just makes the windows, the glass glow real nicely, and the sky, the colors in the sky that happen before the sun comes up is just amazing. So this was made before the sun came up at the Idris house. And then we went inside and made Jonathan and Trina. The first thing I saw were Jonathan's glasses, and I thought somehow those have to be featured in some way. So this was a solution to that thought right here. But I did this photograph after, and I thought this has such a cool feel to it, a nice vibe in their expressions and body language. So I got two really nice photographs out of this session with Trina and Jonathan, and this is the one that's in the book. This is the Lost Kreisel. It's a home out in the Palm Desert that was done by William Kreisel in 1963, and it was forgotten. I mean, as I understand it, it was overgrown with vegetation, and it really nobody knew it was there. In about 2008, my sources, Jim and Karen, happened to be walking by it, as I understand, and they said, "I think that looks like a Kreisel home underneath all that overgrowth." So they brought it to the attention of the preservation and modernism people in town, and then it started this renovation. This is after the renovation. This is as it began. Sean Lockyer, who oversaw the project, is here. Catherine Mailer bought this house the early 2000s, as I understand, somewhere around 2000, and she has lovingly and painstakingly brought it back to its original glory, because this was a crack. This house is the Marion Tool House in Palm Desert by Rudolf Schindler from the late 47, I believe it is, right around 47. Not many people know about this. I'm not sure many people have seen it. My sources, Jim and Karen, a couple of years ago, introduced me to the owner, Doug Kopp, and his daughter, Kim. And I went over and spent a lot of time at the Schindler House. And I again, scouted, realized I wanted to shoot it at dusk, and I wanted to get this reflective angle. So what I had to do in this case is put my camera tripod into the pool and literally have the body of the camera about an inch off the water, and then let it sit for about a half hour so every ripple was gone. And then we just waited it out until the light was just right, and we made this portrait of Doug sitting outside, and Kim is inside the house looking out at him. The interior of the Schindler House. There's so much going on in this vibrant community. I think the appeal of all it has to offer will keep it vital for a long, long time, and the language of mid-century modern architecture will continue to evolve and capture the attention of this and the coming generations. Although I began the project for selfish reasons, I guess you could say, to find out for myself who and what makes this place tick, I could not be happier to share my vision of this rich place I've grown to love. And to top that off, after doing a subject head count in the book recently, I am so very privileged to have made 83 new friends in the process. And it just doesn't get any better.